Welcome everyone, back again, another Friday, and holy cow did this come so quickly. Absolutely crazy how quickly these weeks have been flying by, and here we are. You can see now, holy cow, I'm in the process of moving, getting out of here. Maybe you didn't know, but this studio is actually built in my garage. I put this together. It is coming apart. It is absolutely coming apart, and look, one of the walls is down, and you can see the garage door and all this stuff. Holy cow, things are moving along really quickly here, and boy, oh boy, am I busy at the moment. Holy. Let's get this back. There we go. Welcome. Is that close enough? Should I get closer? Should I get even closer? No, I'll keep you guys back there. Jason Abbey already with a super chat for $5 saying, good day, Clyde and everyone. Let's click the like button and enjoy the show. Absolutely. I'm so thankful to you and everybody for coming here. Hit that like button. It's free, it's easy, and it helps out the channel a whole ton. It's one thing that's been not helping the channel is the fact that I'm so busy that I haven't been able to do my usual 2 videos a day. Some of these days, this week, it's just been 1 video. Doing what I can, though. It's still I have to do these videos. It's important to get the word out on a lot of these stories, and for me, it's a giant stress reliever. I love it. I love what I'm doing here. But yeah, that's it. Margaret, yeah, thank you for the commitment. Hey, come on, Margaret and chat. Come on in. The rest of the chat. There we go. Thanks for your commitment to us, Clyde. Absolutely. I love doing this. This is a dream come true to be able to get these things off my chest instead of screaming at the radio as it's playing at work or something like that, or the amount of cars that I get into and CBC's playing when I go to test drive them. Goodness gracious. We need to do something about that CBC already. But yeah, it's frustrating. So this is such a stress reliever. It's fantastic. It's great. Lamau CBC playing. Yeah, not in the shop, in customers' cars. Nobody would stomach the CBC in the shop. No way. Don't ever stop, Clyde. We love you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. No, I'm not gonna stop. And I've got a lot of things that are on the go right now. Moving. We're gonna be in a tiny little place for the summer. So things are going to get intimate and interactive in these videos and live streams, because it's going to be me pinned against the wall recording and still doing all this stuff. And then when we do depart, our plan is to head on down to Texas, and we still got to search for a place and all that stuff. We're going to make that happen, and then we'll continue the process. It's going to be a hectic summer time, that's for sure. And of course, don't forget this event that's coming up at the end of June. Let's pop this up on the screen. Reclaiming Canada Conference, June 21st through 23rd, put together by We Unify. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this. We've got a huge lineup, and it keeps growing. And you'll recognize someone here at the bottom. Oh, wow, yeah, Marty up north is going to be there, and we're going to do a panel discussion. It would be like doing our show here that we do on this channel, but live and with other people talking as well. I'm really looking forward to this. You guys can get tickets right from the website here. I'll leave a link here in the chat, so anybody who's interested and wants to come out for that. It's in Victoria, and it's in the end of June 21st through 23rd. So solstice, the summer solstice, and through that weekend. So this is going to be exciting. It's going to be great. I can't wait to do meet and greets. Marty and I did one in Calgary all those months ago, and it was fantastic. Jason Abbey with a $2 super chat saying, don't forget to do the Joe Rogan podcast. If I was invited, I wouldn't turn that down. Absolutely. And this is the goal here, right? So moving to America is not going to be the end of talking about Canada. In fact, if anything, It's going to be talking more about what's happening in Canada, but bringing it to people who don't see it and don't know that this is happening. They don't see that they're the neighbor to their north shares the longest border with them. Huge trading partner is going communist. It's going rogue. And you know what? Like, we're going to get Pierre Poilievre in as prime minister and things might slow down for sure. But there's a lot of things that, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to keep moving in this direction. And of course we need to stop it, slow it down as much as we can. But the story needs to be told. We need more pressure. We can't just have pressure just from within Canada. We need to have as much pressure as possible. So that's going to be the goal here. The goal here is going to be to get that pressure building, swell that pressure up in America, and especially in the state of Texas, freedom-loving people. A lot of people, incidentally, moving out of California because it's gotten crappy there, and they're moving to Austin. So it would be great to speak with them too, because those people are the ones that have woken up snapped out of it and went, no, actually, I like liberty. I don't like this. I know it's secure and it feels good, but I don't like this concept of security over liberty. G-Meister, the $10 super chat. Thank you very much. We need the ability to impeach the prime minister. Clyde, how many followers can you fit in your suitcase when you move to the States? That's funny. Just go to the southern border. It's like Swiss cheese down there, apparently. No, I'm not actually recommending doing that, but yeah, it's funny because Roxham Road, you don't see people going the other way, interestingly enough. But at a certain point, there's going to be at what point did they put up the Berlin Wall? Don't forget, the Berlin Wall was put up not to keep people out. It was there to keep people in. Hi, Clyde. Met you in Calgary. Dean. Awesome. Names. I met so many people in Calgary. But if I saw your face, I never forget a face. That's the interesting thing. But yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure to meet all of you. It was a pleasure to meet everybody. Clyde American is going through the same thing, my friend. Your friend is going? Okay. Dyslexia. It kills me. Clyde America is going through the same thing. Oh, so America is going through the same thing. Yeah, well, yeah. And it is I mean, all those years ago, Ronald Reagan said, this is the final bastion. This is the last bastion of freedom. We need to preserve it here. If we don't, then it'll fall everywhere. I hear Austin, Texas is very lefty. Yeah, for Texas, that's for sure. But it's where everything's happening. And I just love the thing about Austin, because we were looking at Dallas as well. The geography is it's so beautiful there. It's right on the foothills of national parks. Waterways, forests, it's beautiful. Maybe a little on the humid side, but I used to live in Tokyo, so Daifeichu with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. The anthem Glory to Hong Kong has been banned on YouTube in Hong Kong a couple of days ago. Hong Kong is my second home, and it chokes me up when I listen to that anthem. I hope you get a chance to listen to it. Well, if I can't find it on YouTube, I wonder where I can find it, because I've never heard it. We'll never forget that guy from Hong Kong. I gotta play this now because it's just it cracks me up every time. Tell me it pops up. Tell me it pops up. Can I get the actual clip? No. Can I? Oh, I think I found it. Yes. I think I found it. Here, let's get this up. This is the one clip that I can never stop thinking about.
China. We need independence.
Yep. And what's your message to? Have you seen Donald Trump? Do you think he should step in?
Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole.
That kills me every single time. That absolutely
Have you
kills
seen
me.
Donald Trump? Do you think he should step in?
Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole.
Oh man, I love those guys. This is the thing, like all the people that were fighting for freedom in Hong Kong, we should, I mean, I honestly, like, could we just do a foreign exchange program? It would be amazing to just take all the lefties that want communism, let them move over there, and then we can have all the freedom loving, liberty loving Chinese people from Hong Kong that want freedom, and have them come over here, and it would be a great exchange. I think that would be fantastic. You know, if you love communism, we should be able to get one-way tickets for people who just love it to go and live in it. Try it out. Jason Abbey with another $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Are you gonna buy a gun and hit shooting range when you move to Texas? Also, is there a chance you'll move back to Canada if PP fixes everything? On the second part, I don't know. I don't know what the future has in store. I haven't heard of a lot of Canadians moving to the U.S. and then going, I'm moving. I just throw that one out there. But pew pews all the way. I'm a huge fan of pew pews. I've always wanted handguns, but here in Canada, I didn't want to give the RCMP carte blanche to just give me 24 hours notice to enter my home at any time for whatever reason they wanted. That's the crappy part about the restricted firearms license here in Canada. And all you can ever do with it is you're very restricted in how you can transport it. You only go to the range. That's it. Yeah, no. I'm definitely gonna be making some investments. That's for sure. I'm all about the pew pews. Love them. I've always been a fan. I'm just a fan of like mechanical things, and yeah, I think pew pews are super fun, and really cool, mechanical, fascinating machines. Essentially, they're fantastic. So yeah, I'll be getting a bunch of those. Jason Abbey with another $2. Pew pews. You can't even sell or trade mine. No, that's the problem. And that's the thing. Like even if I were to buy some here in Canada, I wouldn't be able to transfer them into the US. If I had any hand pew pews. Yeah, handguns are just, it's crazy what Trudeau's done. I'd stay in Texas. It's beautiful there. My daughter pew pews. Many people pew pew. There's so many people that pew pew that don't talk about it with anybody else. That's just a thing. But hey, let's get into some of these things that I wanted to talk about, because I mean, I know how far this could go. Let's get into some of the memes that I thought were just hilarious. So I don't know if you caught this in the news, but King Charles had a portrait made of him. Does anybody really care about King Charles? Like, put it in the chat. Do you care? Yes, I care about King Charles, or no, care nothing about King Charles. Put it in the chat there, because I'm interested to find out. Like, I know a lot of people in Canada had a certain affinity to the Queen, you know, but Charles, really, like, not really. I didn't care much. I didn't think much about the Queen. I don't really care much for monarchy or any allegiance to it. But yeah, King who, right? The monarchy will die after William. Is it not dead already? I mean, does anyone care? Obviously, look at the chat. Nobody cares about King Charles. But he's a weffer. Yeah, he's a weffer. Big time. Yeah, he's really involved in that stuff. But check this out. They did a portrait of him, and it's just ghastly. What is that? Ugh. Why? I don't. What is it with the elites these days? People who carry that badge, the elites. What is it with them because they keep making these like demonic looking things, and some people have been like flipping it around and doing stuff and finding like little like demons and stuff in the image. I mean, you gotta manipulate it to see that, but whatever. But it's creepy. It's creepy, and this is gonna hang in the, I guess, Buckingham Palace for eternity now, this demonic thing. But the memes were hilarious. Memes were really funny. This one I loved. This one I cracked me right up because oh wow, yeah, that is something else. And then somebody took it one further, and yeah, this you just gotta see this.
No photographs, please. Slides are available in the gift shop. Eh?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Winston. All right, you know what? Give me angry. Will you give me angry? You've had a bad day. You're cranky?
You're cranky.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Ooh, angrier. Ooh, you're scaring me. Stop it. Yeah. Good. Okay, walk for me. Talk for me. Yeah. Okay.
I love
Give me
this.
hot and sexy. Can you do it? Oh, you can. Oh, boy. Show me some teeth. Come on. I bet the girls like you, huh? Huh? Do the girls? Do the guys? Bet they both do, huh? Huh? What about the animals? Do they like you? That's it. More. Yeah, come on. You're big. All right, destroy me. Destroy me now. Yeah. Destroy me. Yeah. Give it. Yeah.
We need to talk.
I've worked with better, but not many.
No photographs.
No photographs of this. It just killed me. That just killed me. It was way too funny. And yeah, many people showing like flipped images where it looks like the devil. It's just, oh man, these people, they're ridiculous. They are ridiculous, and that's why, you know, it means they're deserving of ridicule, and ridicule we shall. It's almost a moral obligation to ridicule them when you see stuff like this. What are you thinking? Oh, elites, give me a break. And some of the other memes that I saw this week were really, really good. Of course, this one, I think this is real, unless somebody really is really good at Photoshop. But I'm getting stronger with age. I can now lift $100 worth of groceries with only one hand. That's it. It's really coming to that. It really is. It's really coming to that. Oh my goodness. Let's get the chat back. Talk with the chat here for a minute, and then I'm gonna get into I'm gonna go on a tangent about something coming up. Looks like CERN painted it. Weird as hell. Yeah, CERN, when they had their what was it? The CERN, you're talking about the Hadron Collider, right? When they opened that up, they had this like opening ceremony. It was like demonic. It was really, really weird. Never give an artist free reign. Yeah, there you go. Well, they said just paint Charles, and then they drew a demon. Tangent alert. Yeah. Oh, especially when it comes to this housing market, I'm going to be for sure going on a tangent. Yeah, it was the weirdest portrait ever. For sure. Show Trudeau and Jughead portrait. Yeah, just trust the science. I'm gonna. There's a lot of people are gonna totally be trusting the science moving forward. Holy cow! Wow. But before I go into any tangents, I just want to say later in the stream, I'm gonna be having a great guest. Jason James will be joining the show. If you don't know him, you gotta go over to his Twitter, follow him over there, check out his podcast. He does some excellent work, and he's gonna be on the show tonight. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with him, and particularly about some of the things that he's been saying lately. And holy cow, this guy's got some serious insight. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's bring her back over here. Lloyd Cameron with the $5 super chat. I think the Hamas radical protesters are becoming a big problem. What do you think? I think we're looking at the summer of love again. That's what I think we're looking at. I even talked to Camille El-Sheikh, who is a Muslim Canadian who was involved in the million-person march. I spoke with him on the phone about a week ago, And we were discussing this, and he was saying that he was there, like he went down to see what was happening. And these people are the same people that were at Black Lives Matter and all these other protests. I think what happened was it started off as like people genuinely asking for a ceasefire protests, and then a lot of these radicals came in and took a stake in this, and they've been saying some. I can't even, like, you gotta be kidding me what some of these people are saying. Like, let's I have this right here. This was at one of the protests where another weekend. This is in Vancouver, and what were they screaming? What were they shouting?
Today, long live Palestinian resistance and their heroic and brave action on October 7th. And they said, long live October 7th. And we say today, long live October 7th. Long live October 7th.
And what's crazy to me is, like, okay, this lady, you can't see her that well, but I don't think she's Palestinian. I don't think, she's not a devout Muslim. She's not covering her hair, like all these things. You look at the symbology that they're using. They have the same fist symbolism. You go to you see what they're protesting at these things. You see a lot of communism flags, whether it's like the new one with the wheat and the gear, or it's the old one with a hammer and sickle. People proudly saying that Lenin was a great man. All this stuff. What does that have to do with Palestine? Well, the answer to that is nothing. It has nothing to do with that. And it's just a bunch of people that are latching on to this thing, and then they're being as what's the word I'm looking for? Flamboyant, or perhaps what word am I looking for here? Controversial. They're saying the most egregious things with the sheer purpose, the hope that people will come out and oppose them, and then they'll get their moments. It is outrageous. Yeah, it is outrageous. Maybe that's the word I should use. So they'll say outrageous things, and they want that opposition so that they'll get headlines, so they get news, and then so they can turn around and set things on fire, burn cars, do all this stuff, and they'll say, oh, well, it was both sides. And then I think this is the summer of love happening all over again, but instead of Black Lives Matter, it's going to be this. And it's that's my opinion on it. I've been watching this for a while and seeing it unfold, and that's genuinely what I think is happening in this case. So thank you, Lloyd, for the super chat, and that's my opinion on that. Jason Abbey with a $2 super chat. Did you hear CPI have housing at 6.1% if you pay? What? Oh, 6.1%. It's only 6.1% up. Yeah, I don't believe it. That's crazy, and that's if you pay, like if you pay cash for a house. Not get a mortgage that has much higher interest rates than it had just a while ago. And I think that interest rates so low for so long was a big problem. It was a big problem that exacerbated this whole situation. And I don't think that it's really that much of a Canadian thing. I think the Bank of Canada is largely following what the Federal Reserve is doing. If our money appreciates too much compared to the US dollar, it screws with trade short term, and it's not a good thing in the short term. Long term, not as much of a big deal, because prices things can adjust. But short term, the Bank of Canada always tries to peg the Canadian dollar just below the US dollar. But I mean, we can get into that if you want. Suzanne, member for 6 months. Oh, that was a loud noise. When Pierre wins, Trudeau still wins. He filled the Senate with liberals. Yeah, actually, that's part of what I want to talk about with Jason James today. So yeah, I agree with you there, and that's going to be a scary thing. I almost did a video about that this week, but ran out of time. Icewind Dale. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. A member for 8 months. Holy cow. It's been a minute. These people should try moving to the country that they support. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But this is the thing. If these people, I don't think they're supporting that cause. I think they're honestly, they're about other things, their own things. And that's not, they don't care. They want to tear down Canada. And they're not shy about saying that. People who are actual Marxists, they say these things. Jason Abbey, another $2 super chat, 6.1% of your pay. Oh, 6.1% of your pay for a house? What? I'm trying to think of what you actually mean by that. 6.1% of your like income? Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that because that's a screwy number. In fact, why don't we get into that right now? Why don't we get into that immediately? Check this out. So income needed to buy a home in Canada, depending on where you are. This is as of 2023. So the new numbers are probably going to be even worse. But this is the reality. This isn't how much a home costs. This is how much you have to earn per year to make the basic minimums to buy into the housing market at this point. To buy into the housing market. So Toronto, $230,000 a year. You have to make. If you're in Montreal, you're only $120,000 a year just to get into the basic market. It's the cheapest here. Looks like Quebec City. So Quebec City, really? Is Quebec that cheap? Oh, sorry. Is that Quebec City or Quebec as a whole? It must be subsidized or just like the boonies stuff. $84,000 to get into you have to earn that much. You have to earn that much per year to basic to earn enough to buy a home. Vancouver, $242,000 a year. Yeah, that's not a lot. That's not a lot of people that make that kind of dough every single year. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And what are they doing about it? Well, nothing great. What you living in Texas and what you living in Texas and price? You have a mechanic job in Texas? Oh, I'll be setting that up. Yeah, for sure. I've been looking at what the average mechanics make, and its salaries are actually much more lucrative than here, unbelievably, and not have to deal with the rust. That's amazing. So yeah, I'll get a mechanic job there, and then I'll obviously also do this. I'll be doing the same sort of thing, just doing it without winter. Not gonna miss that. I'm not gonna lie. But here's where it gets ridiculous. Sean Fraser. So you remember last week when I can't remember where the quote came from, but I think it was Fraser or somebody in the government was saying that they had a budget of $18 million and we're gonna build X amount of homes. And I did the math real quick, because it doesn't take that long to just do basic math. And they were boasting basically about making homes for $6,000 each. Like, honestly, you can't even buy the permits to build a home with $6,000. I think it's like across Canada, it's like at least $100,000. Basic, like, and that's across Canada, just for the permission from the governments. That income is husband and wife combined on a lot of cases. Yeah, well, it's household income. So yeah, some people, both their family members work, or both husband and wife work, but not always. But here we go. I love this. Each of these homes were built in a factory in 2 hours and assembled on site in 3 hours. This type of innovation Canada is embracing in order to build the homes we need faster. Canadian industry and Canadian workers have the creativity and ambition required to meet what? To meet this moment. By working together, we can and we will solve the housing crisis that You forgot that we created liberal government. Yes, and especially you, Sean Fraser, as immigration minister just before becoming housing minister. You destroy that and then come in and destroy the next thing. Unbelievable. So, okay, so they're going to build houses in 5 minutes. 5-minute houses. That's what he's boasting. 2 minutes in the factory. 3 minutes. Sorry, two hours in the factory. And then 3 hours at the site to build these homes. Now, Johnny Wisebush was commenting on this. Really? Concrete poured and cured, everything completed, including appliance installations, plumbing, electrics, gas, and all. Maybe this is just more lies and deception. Absolutely. 5-minute houses in 15-minute cities. There you go. Sorry, I said 5-minute house. 5-hour houses in 15-minute cities. That's it. Like, there's no way. Oh man, it just cracks me up so much that they think like, what kind of idiot? Oh, what kind of idiots are people voting for in this government to think that that's a real thing? Like, I get it. It would be faster to do modular housing. Like, it's faster. And, you know, you build these things and then it's cookie cutter. It's easier to prop up. Like, you're literally just propping it up. But there's no 5 hours. You get off of it. It's just so crazy. It's just so crazy that this is what they're saying. So I'm adding to it, laughing when I heard this comment. Even if this were possible, the manpower required would be immense. And this is what's crazy about this. We're not getting more tradesmen in Canada than we had before. We're losing tradesmen in Canada. This is what these guys don't understand. You can't just throw money at something and expect it to just happen. Like, yeah, sure. Like, you can throw money at some things. Like, you know, you've got an issue. Oh, you got an issue with your car? Just get another car. Like, you know, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with the problems that I'm having with this car and always having to take it to the shop. I'm just going to throw money at it, get a new car. There are no new houses to just plop. You need tradespeople to build these things. It's absolutely insane that you would even suggest that it's that easy. RX with a $5 super chat, off topic. Hey, Clyde met Marty and others Wednesday. So fun. All thanks to seeing him on your channel. Keep up the good work. Everyone there was awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing this. I love hearing this. Yeah, that's right. Because we did a recording on Tuesday because he was going to that thing. So that's fantastic, RX. I'm glad you got to meet him. You guys had a great time. I look forward to more of these events. On the 21st at the We Unify event. I'll just pop this up for anyone who wasn't in the chat at the time. This is the Reclaiming Canada conference put on by Reunify, June 21st through 23rd in beautiful Victoria, the woke city in Canada. Maybe we'll get a rise out of people. That might be a thing. If you wanna poke the bear, poke it in his den. That's what you gotta do. So I look forward to meeting with people. These events are fantastic. Jason Abbey with a $5 super chat. I'm a carpenter. If I apply at 3 jobs, I get 3 replies, and everyone is needing carpenters. Many are retiring, and young people are going to trade school. Yeah, young people are going to trade school. That's right. But is there enough that are going to trade school to replace the volume of people that are leaving the trade because you guessed it, they're boomers and they're moving on. They're retiring. They've had enough. It's over. Time to go enjoy some Mai Tais in Florida or whatever Canadians that get to retire do. So I don't know if I'll ever get to retire. Well, again, I'll be living in Texas, not Florida. But this is the thing. It's absolutely insane that our politicians just think that these things can happen without actually, like, what are the giant trade programs that they're getting, incentivizing young people to get into? Jason Abbey with $2. I meant aren't going to trade school. Sorry. Yeah, no, they're not. No, there are people that are going. So when I went to trade school, I saw that there was carpenter classes and all of this stuff. And the carpenter classes there were a lot more full than the mechanic classes. That's for sure. And there was a lot more of their courses available. Because that was the problem. There wasn't even enough courses offered for all the young people that wanted to be mechanics. Like, the funds are just not going into this stuff. That's the problem. But you know, this is what just cracks me up. So under Sean Fraser, where are we? Under Sean Fraser, this guy who's boasting about how he's going to fix the problem that he created with under his when he was immigration minister, because that's the reason why we largely can't house people, is because it's crazy to try to find a place. People I'm hearing stories that, like, in Brampton, where, you know, people are renting out the space underneath their bed. If that's true or not, I don't know. But I've seen, like, ads in some of these, like, Reddit forums and stuff. It's crazy, renting out the space underneath their bed. But it's amazing to me that, you know, they opened up, they made all this loophole for immigration. The loophole for immigration right now that's been taken advantage of, which is the student visas thing. So we got all these student visas that are taking place. The people are coming over, and I don't know if you guys caught this video from this week. If you haven't, go back and watch it. But I interviewed Darshan Maharaja. He's been talking about this and reporting on this for ages. And he said the amount of people that are coming in is in the millions, right? In the millions. And I can't remember what the number was. It was some ridiculous number, like 90,000 people who were in school. Just, or was it 900,000? The number of people and what they were studying was business management. Like, we need a bunch more managers in Canada. What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, I wouldn't mind if, you know, we had a line item in immigration to say, you know, if we're going to invest in a bunch of schools for trades workers, and if there's not enough Canadian applicants, then we'll open it up for immigrants that want to fill those training jobs. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, at least not trans studies. Yeah. Oh, the amount of people though that were going to these schools, and the schools they didn't even show up. They were here for the immigration. Like, it's crazy, and it was this loophole that they created. It was a backdoor for people who they're not eligible for immigration, so they just went through the school loophole, and they would go to some sham college above a massage parlor, and then that would get them their immigration to come over here, and then they had no training, didn't speak the language, and end up doing what? Working Uber Eats, if they can afford a car, or McDonald's. That's about it. RX with a $2 super chat. FYI, chat is showing over top of what you're displaying. Yeah. No, I know that. I just wanted to keep the chat up here, and I'm missing some super chats here. Just bear with me 1 second here. BE4U. That's right. Yeah, BE4U. Dyslexia makes mockery of everything I look at. The $20 super chat. Thank you so much, by the way. Will you be paying the departure tax before you leave? Hard. I heard it's 20K. I'm not sure. I need to get into this. Okay. I was going to do a video. I wasn't sure if I was going to still do it. I did some of the research on this. Incidentally, Jason Abbey gifting a membership to the channel. Thank you very much. Should I get into this? I'll get into that in a little bit here. Remind me in the chat, because it's not true. It's not true, but it sounds true enough. There isn't a departure tax. If you were leaving the country and they're like, oh, well, you're leaving? Here's a bill for 20 something grand, like $27,000. You'd just say, yeah, okay, bill me. You know, what are you going to do about it? Get out of here. No one would pay it. That's the reality of it. RX with a $2 super chat. Oh yeah, it's showing over what I'm displaying. Yeah, that's no problem. Truther with a $20 super chat. I'm a foreman electrician. There are lots of people here in Vancouver that want to come to my sites to simply collect a paycheck. They literally just saunter around and don't give a crap about anything. Canada is in trouble. You're absolutely correct on this. And we know this in the trade, in the auto trade. You hire some people and it's like, oh boy, you're really taking a risk with some of them. And I absolutely get it. Like, unless you're already ticketed, then like if you went through the 4-year apprenticeship and you got a ticket and you show up with all your own tools, usually you know that person is they got it in them. They might be a lazy whatever, but you know, at least they got that in them and they'll work and they know what they're doing. But no, like new hires, it's a gamble. It's a huge gamble, massively. But I can imagine on construction sites it being way worse. I can't remember who was telling me just the other day that you know, stories where like workers in the middle of their shift, they'd say, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, and then they like climb out the window and just take off. Like, what? And you're like, where'd that guy go? I don't know. And he never comes back. Like, just didn't have it in him, you know, kind of thing. What's this? Lol, Clyde isn't a toker. No, I'm not a toker. I don't know where that came from. That's hilarious. But yeah, yeah, holy cow. Too much to talk about in this. But anyway, so here's Sean Fraser, incidentally, not Mark Miller, who is now the immigration minister. Oh, I need to pull this up, actually. I need to pull this up. Bear with me for 1 second here, because I'm gonna I love that video. I'll pop that off to the side. From my channel, I did a short on this, and it was Mark Miller. There we go. The immigration scam, because that's exactly what this is.
These institutions are smart, and they've gone and they've seen that they can get tuition fees that are 4 or 5 times more than what my kids pay at McGill or Acadia.
Trudeau's immigration minister, Mark Miller, makes an about face on his international student policy. This was him just a few months ago.
Look, international students are a credit to this country, Mr. Speaker. They are the future of this country, and they are an asset that is very lucrative, and they are an asset that is very lucrative.
And they are an asset that is very lucrative.
Yeah, they are. Independent journalists broke the story that this was actually a scam billion-dollar industry and a backdoor for immigration.
It is not the intention of this program to have sham commerce degrees or business degrees that are sitting on top of a massage parlor that someone doesn't even go to, and then they come into the province and drive an Uber.
But that's exactly how it went down. It is exactly how it went down. It's absolutely how it went down. It's so ridiculous that these guys would think otherwise. I mean, they set up all the incentives. See, this is the thing that I just don't get why lefties can't get this through their head. You can't just will things into existence. If you want things to happen in a marketplace, you don't just throw money at a thing. That creates malinvestment. What you do is you create incentives that would entice people to go towards that thing. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you want more homes to be built, get rid of all the red tape building houses. Just get rid of all of it. Get into your environmental protection agency stuff and go, yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. This is way too strict. Yeah, let's loosen this up a little bit. Like, obviously, all the safety stuff, keep all that in play. That makes a lot of sense. Make sure people are safe. That's important. But like all the dumb regulations and permits over and over again. And this is what, like, this guy does not get this when he's showing this exactly. Check this out. Oh, check these awesome secondary suites. Whether you want to add one of these to your private to your property or finish your basement so you can rent it out, we are designing a loan program that will get you up to $40,000 low-cost financing to get the job done. You have any idea how much this costs to build? You have any idea how much this costs to build? The permitting alone, I'm not kidding. Concrete slab in your backyard. What? How long? Somebody put in the chat. How long will you wait in your town before you get a permit to put a concrete slab in your backyard? How long will you wait? It's not just about money either. It's about how long you'll wait. The backlogs for permits are ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. Oh, we're going to throw taxpayers' money at this problem. You can't just throw money at it. You have to get rid of the red tape, create incentives. You don't even have to throw money at it. There is so much money that people would love to throw at it if the government would just get the hell out of the way so that people can do it for themselves. It's just insane to me that they don't understand this. Dawid Lazowski with a $5 super chat. You should try to get Shane Wenzel on. He's a house developer in Calgary. Well, that would be really good. Actually, I have a guest that I've been wanting to bring on. He's from my town here. We could talk about how it's become so expensive in my town and why I'm ending up leaving after losing my rental. But great idea. That would be fantastic. RX with a $5 super chat. I'm the spoiled city person in my family, full of trades. At least I'm honest about it. Yeah. Full of trades. It's crazy. If you make good money in the trades, people have been lied to. People have been lied to so bad. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You're not gonna get much with your underwater basket weaving diploma. You're not gonna get much with your gender studies degree. You learn to swing a hammer and you get a carpenter's red seal. You'll be making some coin. Yeah, you get a plumbing red seal. You'll be making some coin. Learn how to drill holes and pull wire. You'll be making some coin. learn how to pull a wrench. You'll be making some coin. Crazy that people are getting into these like careers that just don't have any job prospects in the future. Canadian universities, unbelievable. Management. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. Let's get this back here. Solar, remember, for 16 months. Holy cow. That's a relationship. Thank you so much. We have a silver spoon government who has no idea how to balance the budget. Yeah, no, you just need to stimulate the economy and then the budget will balance itself, right? Isn't that what he said? That's what Trudeau said all that time ago. What a bunch of idiots. This is just insane to me. Dawid Lazowski with $5 super chat. Marty can most likely get you in contact with Shane. Shane has gone to the Calgary meetup before. Well, that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to talk to some more developers and builders and talk about specifically this stuff, because it's just insane to me that this is how far up their own arseholes they are, for lack of a better term. These guys are so detached from reality, completely detached from reality. Again, back to it. The parts from these homes were built in a factory in 2 hours. And the parts from these homes were assembled in 3 hours. And it's just a 5-hour house. What were we thinking? It's kind of like Jagmeet Singh. Hey, why don't we just make affordable houses? That's the problem. We just keep making all these expensive houses. Come on, man. Let's get with it. Holy cow. We need some plumbers and pipe fitters and mechanics in Parliament. Get rid of these guys. They don't know what they're talking about. It's so crazy. And then not only this, you go on YouTube, just type in modular home factory. And what do you get? You get all these people who've built these bungalows and modular homes and stuff. And what are a lot of the ones? The harsh reality about prefab homes and why I won't ever buy them. Okay. Great option for us. But at least they could make it in 5 minutes. Concrete set up, everything ready to go. 5 minutes. No problem. I'll get Vinny. He's coming over right now. And I can't believe it. Oh, it's just so funny. It's tragic, but it's funny at the same time. Holy cow, these people have lost it. And yeah, make yourself a suite. We'll give you 40 grand to make a suite so you can house one of the million immigrants that we brought into the country this year with no skills. and you prop them up in your backyard. We only have to wait 3 years for the permit to put the concrete slab down before you can flop this house onto it. So yeah, you know, immediate problems require immediate solutions. I just can't believe this. I just can't believe this at all. And then what does Trudeau have to say? He comes on and he says this crap because he just can't help himself. I'm gonna show the longer video because this one was from Contrarian on Twitter. If you're not following him, get over there and give him a follow. He's been putting some stuff together, and he was nice enough to put one together that didn't have the copywritten music on it so that I could show the video that he created. So I'll play this. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit here and then boom.
We've put on pollution.
Today, Pierre Poilievre said that he's calling for you to suspend all gas and diesel tax from Victoria Day to Labor Day to give Canadians a break this summer. Will you do that?
I think the conversation should be had with the provinces as well, who are responsible for a significant part of excise taxes and taxes on gasoline across the country. Mr. Poilievre continues to refer to the federal carbon tax, which is a price we've put on pollution to make sure that pollution is not free anywhere in this country. And the way we chose to do it was to collect the price on carbon emissions, including on gas, and giving that money back to Canadian families in such a way that 8 out of 10 families in regions where the federal carbon backstop applies do better with the checks that come in through the Canada Carbon Rebate 4 times a year than it costs them extra on a tank of gas or to heat their homes. That is the way we designed the fight against pollution, against climate change. We're both putting a price on pollution to incentivize people to pollute less, and we're putting more money in the pockets of families across the country. So when
stopping any
Pierre
pollution,
Poilievre talks about
CO2 is
scrapping
not necessarily
the price on pollution, he's also talking about eliminating those Canada Carbon Rebate checks that come in, hundreds of dollars for families across the country every few months, that helps offset not just the price of gas, but the cost of groceries, the cost of living that go up left, right, and center. The Parliamentary Budget Officer...
Why? Oh, error! Come on. Why are these prices going up so crazy? Well, it's because of this government. I'll play the clip that made it most famous. This is great. Pierre Poilievre wants to axe the tax. Trudeau goes on a rant telling Canadians that Pierre Poilievre wants to get rid of the carbon tax so he can watch Canada burn to the ground. Oh, God, you can't make this up.
This is what Pierre Poilievre is talking about when he talks about axing the tax. He talks about stopping the fight against climate change at a time where the country is burning.
It's burning.
At a time where floods and storms are having an impact on every corner of the country. And at a time when Canadians are struggling with the cost of living, he wants to take away checks that put more money in their pockets. His ideology is so strong, he would rather watch the country burn and Canadians suffer than continue to fight against climate change and put the Canada carbon rebate in their pockets. That tells us an awful lot about the kind of choices he makes as leader.
Canada's burning. It's burning down. Now, we do have a forest fire issue in Canada, and it's largely because of our mismanagement of the forests for a long time. So when forests do catch fire, which they do all the time, lightning strikes. Hey, guess what? Lightning strikes, and it causes a significant amount of forest fires. Turns out a huge number of forest fires are caused by arson and also campers that are just not paying attention. But the problem here is not that the forest fires are happening. It's that they're worse. They're worse than they've been in a long time because of mismanagement. We're not going in and clearing out the brush. It would be great if we were logging or if we were doing controlled burns on the regular, which is what normally happens in nature. Nature allows this stuff to burn. Forests are often more scarce, not scarce, but sparse. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. Just naturally. Now they're super dense. Over 100 years of fire suppression has led to the problem that we have now. Too much fuel load in our forests, and when they go, and boy do they go. Boy, do they go. It's just insane. It's insane to me. Let's get back to this. I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Here we go. I've got RX with a $20 super chat. We could use an educational exchange program where city kids and country kids trade places for 2 weeks per year. We need all the spoiled people to learn the harsh reality of food production, trades, long driving distances, etc. I think that's a fantastic idea, actually. I hadn't considered that. That would work great. Instead of doing a foreign exchange with other countries, we could do a foreign exchange with our own people, or a city exchange, at least try some other stuff out. That would be really good. That would be really good. I mean, when I was growing up, we had the nature of things, and we would go do camping trips and stuff like that when I was a kid. And it turns out David Suzuki lost his mind. It was fantastic when I was a young man. But yeah, now, holy cow. Yeah, those swirly light bulbs that he wanted to bring us all mercury poisoning with, as it turned out. Man, the things that people do for their ideology. Trudeau doing the classic thing, blame the other side for what it is that you're doing yourself with this, talking about his ideologically driven. It's just insane to me. I can't believe the stuff that we're talking about these days. And now that I mention it, a lot of us are talking about these things these days. And tonight I have a guest that's been talking a lot about this stuff these days on Twitter and on his podcast. And oh man, I'm glad to have this guy on. Want to welcome to the show Jason James. Welcome, man.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, and this is the first time I've actually ever got to speak with you like person to person. It's usually Twitter exchanges. But man, yeah. you've been tweeting up a storm. You've got all kinds of great stuff on there, and I end up sharing a lot of what you say on the show because it's incredible. Can you tell people where to find you first and foremost?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me Jason James BNN on X, or you can go to bravenewnormal.substack.com. That's my hub. That's where all of my writing and all of the podcasts live. But yeah, if you want an easy way without having to sign up, you can follow me on X, Jason James BNN.
Perfect. I want to get into this right away to a tweet that you put out just not too long ago, and this I found very interesting. This was your prediction. Trudeau will step down in the fall and will be replaced with this guy being Mark Carney. And rather than reading your own tweet and your own words out to you, I'd love to give you the chance to elaborate on this one, because I thought this was a very interesting take, and it could be a dangerous situation when it comes to the popularity for Pierre Poilievre, or to drive people away from moving towards the Conservatives in general in this next upcoming election. This might actually bring some voters back to the Liberals, based on, well, what you said. I'll let you lay this out.
Yeah, and before I get going, if I look like I'm broadcasting from a haunted house, I'm sorry guys, I'm still working out the lighting situation over here.
Oh, I'm gonna be dealing with this a lot, man, because I've got this whole move going on, and we're gonna be going to Texas. People are gonna be seeing a lot like you, like what you've got going on there for a while. So no problem.
So Mark Carney, where do we start? I mean, he's a Goldman Sachs guy. He's deeply embedded amongst the Laurentian elite. For the people who don't know, those are the power brokers who secretly, run the Liberal Party behind the scenes, and I would say parts of the Conservative Party and parts of the NDP as well. He is former Bank of England, I think governor of the Bank of England. He's a globalist. The thing that people really need to know about him is that he's a globalist through and through. And he fully believes in the whole climate change narrative as a means of bringing in, central bank digital currencies and digital IDs and things like that. Like he is full bore. So what I would always, the way to best describe him is that Trudeau is basically an empty vessel for ideology. He doesn't know what he's saying when he says it. Like they just give him the words and he says the words. That's why it comes across as being so deeply disingenuous. Trudeau's not really an evil guy necessarily. He's a self-centered narcissist to like the highest degree.
Well, isn't that evil though? Like in itself, like
I guess, yeah.
Like you would end up doing evil things. Like so many people that are self-interested and have no empathy for others could be used. I mean, he is a tool. Obviously, he's a tool. I don't think he's a mastermind of anything. I think he's exactly as you described. He's just the guy that says the words. He knows to do the oscillating fan technique. Look over here, then look over there, and say the words. That's it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if you want to define it that way, then he's definitely evil. And you're right. I think Trudeau would sacrifice the entire country for the sake of his own reputation, right? Which is what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's what he is. He's an egomaniac. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. But Mark Carney is the next level. He's the next step up. Mark Carney is well aware of the consequences that any of these climate policies that he's pushes forward are going to have on the general population, and he doesn't care, right? Mark Carney is 100% a tool for globalism. He's Trudeau is the frying pan, Mark Carney is the fire.
Well, I think Trudeau was the pretty boy that could bring it about at a time when people just weren't paying attention much, and like he really did win the election, the first one, on his hair, like that was a thing. Were people really that sick of Harper? If it wasn't for like all the buzz in the news, it was really the CBC was sick of Harper. People were pretty content with the way Canada was going. We walked away from the 2008 crisis, the economic crisis, largely unscathed. Where a lot of people in not just America, I mean, over in Japan, they got hit really hard. They still call it the Lehman shock. That's a big thing. So it was definitely a global hit, people globally on that one. But Harper's government left us largely unscathed. I'm not a Harper super fan or anything like that. He was walking us into the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He was walking us into a lot of things with a lot of these global agendas, just like you're saying. Like a lot of the conservatives are on board with that stuff. And it's either we shift gears and we walk it back, or we slow down the walk at least. I think Trudeau has always been that character that was willing to springboard dive Canada into this new era of the WEF and the it sounds so cliche now, global agenda to whatever, right? So, but this concept of bringing forward a post nation state world where there's what they call stakeholder capitalism, which is not very much different from how China runs their economy. Oh boy, wouldn't we love that? That'd be great for all of us.
Well, just to kind of interject here, stakeholder capitalism is just it's code for fascism. That's what it is.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
When they say public-private partnership, if you were to define fascism, that's what it is.
Well,
And so
Mussolini
that's the thing is
said fascism was a bad word for it. It should have been called corporatism, right? The idea there's a perfect
Right.
merger between corporation and state, and
That's right.
And rights be damned, right? Like there's no room for
right,
there's no room
right.
for liberty in that equation.
No, none at all. And that's what we're moving toward. And I agree with you. Like when I hear like globalist agenda, my eyes want to roll to the back of my head, because I'm like, do you know what you're talking about? Because it's become cliche at this point. But I think that's the point, is to make it so played out that it's like the word woke. You hear woke now and you're like, what does that even mean anymore? Right.
Yeah.
And we can, and we have to keep redefining it. Like I was calling it postmodern neo-Marxism for the longest time. I knew that's what it was before Jordan Peterson coined that phrase,
Yep.
just because I've spent a long time reading about philosophy and things like that. But I switched to neoliberalism because that became kind of like the better way to explain it. But even the word neoliberalism is getting played out. So we have to keep redefining this thing, because the more we talk about it, I think the more it exhausts people, that they're like, oh, globalism again. But the digital ID just passed the first reading in Australia's parliament. Right?
I was reading that today.
So
yeah, it's scary.
yes. Yeah. And so from what I've heard, there's a digital ID framework stuffed inside of the budget bill for 2024 here in Canada. So this is coming, right? Like this is coming for us. And that's why it's important for us to keep talking about it, even if we have to keep redefining how to say it, right? Because the truth is look, Mark Carney is going to woo liberals back to the left. And I kind of wrote it in that piece there, but he's going to soften the language. He's going to say carbon tax was a step too far. He's going to say we need a more realistic plan for building homes. The Trudeau plan is a little ambitious. He's going to say things like that. And, to go back to Stephen Harper and the reason why Justin Trudeau was elected, it's because nobody cared about Canadian politics for the longest time. During Stephen Harper's tenure, right? If you asked most Canadians, who's your prime minister, they wouldn't know. That's where we were, right?
It was like after Chrétien, everyone kind of like,
right. And so, I'm not a Harper super fan myself. He was sleepwalking us deeper and deeper into the clutches of China. That's for sure.
Yes.
But Harper was an economist. And what we always have to remember is that during the economic crisis in 2008, when the United States collapsed and the rest of the world just about went with it, Stephen Harper guided us through that.
Yeah.
That was Stephen Harper, right? So I do have to give him credit in some areas and saying, okay, he definitely wasn't the best guy in the world, but which of these guys are? At least he had the temerity and the awareness to navigate us through what was an incredibly rocky global economic situation, to a point where Canada actually came out on top economically at the end of it all.
Yes.
Right. And so
we walked right into a bubble, though. Like we did walk directly into the housing bubble, and the housing bubble started under Harper. Like it didn't start under the Liberals, but it definitely exacerbated under the Liberals, under Justin Trudeau.
That's right.
With all the spending and inflation on top of that. So like some of the value of houses is only nominal, right? Because of the inflation. But then, speculative market. And then they came in, and as it got less and less affordable to get into a house, let's loosen up the lending standards. All of the things that led to the housing market bubble of the United States that popped in at the end of 2007. Like, if you go back and you listen to anyone who actually predicted this stuff, namely Ron Paul and Peter Schiff, who were speaking about this like very loudly, but everybody wanted to ignore it. They kept saying low interest rates for too long. This is malinvestment, and you're encouraging people to get into the housing market and bid up the prices of housing, the thing that everybody needs. Like this is ridiculous. and they walked right into it. But it's crazy. And they're doing the same thing here in Canada. They've been doing the same thing under Trudeau. So I think that under Harper, a lot of this like housing speculation stuff, it came in because the Bank of Canada kept interest rates really, really low at that time. And they were doing with the quantitative easing thing that you see coming out of the United States with the Federal Reserve. And largely Canada wants to peg the dollar so that, you know, it fosters trade. So if the United States is on a crazy spree of inflating their currency, the Bank of Canada has to follow suit. How do you do that? Liquidity. Add liquidity to the market. And that's exactly what they did. And I think that fostered the beginning of this. So I wouldn't say that the beginning of the housing bubble in Canada was Harper's fault, but it was under Harper's watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm from BC, you're in BC. I mean, I wrote a piece today about growing up in Richmond, in British Columbia, which was ground zero for the Chinese money laundering scheme. I mean, I was there when it started. I was there in the very early stages. I watched it develop. I watched it happen. I literally watched my life collapse around me.
Well, explain that
right?
for anyone who's not heard exactly. And I'd like to know more details of how the money laundering actually went down. Like what was this whole scheme about?
So, okay, there's two sides to this story. So I kind of have to explain it two ways. I'm not going to take the long way. I'll take some shortcuts. But basically, my story starts in 1995 was where I really started to notice it. There were lots and lots of Chinese immigrants that showed up in our neighborhood. And where I grew up in Richmond was, you know, it was mostly single moms, middle class, lower middle class, blue collar families, people from all over the world, all sorts of immigrants. But it was like overnight, it just suddenly our neighborhood was just packed with Chinese immigrants, and nobody thought anything about it really, because, you know, whatever, right? Come on in, be my neighbor sort of deal, right?
Right. And
then about a year later, I would say 2 out of 3 homes in my neighborhood were bulldozed to the ground. Like I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Like my neighborhood looked like Beirut, right? Like it was just leveled. And what happened is that all these people who were moving into our neighborhood had bought the small family homes for triple, quadruple what they were worth. So of course, most people were selling their homes, right? Because you buy a home in 1985 for, you know, $200,000 or $150,000, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I'll give you $700,000 for this house." I mean, you never in your wildest dreams did you ever imagine coming into that type of money, right?
Yeah. So you're like, so okay, I'll sell and I'll buy a house over there for cash.
Exactly. Or move over the bridge to Vancouver and live in Vancouver, in South Vancouver and spend half of what you made, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened is all these houses were bulldozed to the ground, mansions were built, most of them were empty, which for all of us in the neighborhood was kind of like it was a shock. We were stunned because now we lived in a ghost town. There was nobody in our neighborhood, and slowly but surely people were moving out as houses were selling, because a lot of us were renters too, right? So you have these houses being torn down.
Wait, so it wasn't being filled up with these Chinese immigrants that came over? They weren't
in most cases. No, they were investment properties, and really what they were a method of getting cash out of China and into Canada, right? So what they were doing was they were buying these properties, building these houses on top of them, knowing that if you have a mansion here and a mansion next door and a mansion across the street, that it's going to increase the value of all the houses around it, right? Because the landscape is changing.
Right.
And so what happened was you did have some people who lived in these houses, and 9 times out of 10, it was a student, right? A single kid in like a 10-bedroom mansion, or it was a mom with her kids. And on paper, she was a housewife. So she didn't pay any income tax, right? And the story was dad's in China. He sends money over every month. But what was really happening was that these people who were coming over were money mules. And Sam Cooper writes about this extensively. What they were doing was they were sending these women and children over, children to be students, women to be mothers and housewives. And they were using these people as mules, their bank accounts as mules, to get money into the country and then disperse the money into, you know, a myriad of different things, right? And we also had in our neighborhood birthing homes, right? Which was the most interesting aspect of this. Yeah, I can recall at least 3 near where I lived, and I was in a fourplex, in a fourplex rental. And so you would have like 10 or 15 pregnant Chinese women living in these houses at all at the same time. They would give birth at Richmond General Hospital. And the reason for that being, we found out later, was because when a child is born in Canada under Canadian law, that child is automatically a Canadian citizen.
Right.
And so what they were doing was they were having children in Canada, because if you're the mother of a Canadian citizen, then obviously you're privy to the same rights as the child. And what that did was it extended the mother's stay in the country so that she could continue laundering money for CCP backed organized crime or CCP party members, right? And I know this sounds really fantastic and out there, but I'm telling you,
this is
really
actually
did
like
happen.
government officials in China. Like I always assumed the money laundering to get from China was to get the money out of China so that they wouldn't have to like be subject to paying exorbitant taxes or whatever. The whole don't trust China. China is asshole. That meme is a thing, is real.
Yeah. So the thing that you have to keep in mind is that in China, everything is intertwined. It's all mixed together, right? So if you're a prominent businessman, then you're a CCP member, right? If you're part of the organized crime, then your organized crime group has links to CCP officials. It's like an octopus with tentacles.
Right.
Everything is connected to the CCP. Right. It's not like here where it's like, Clyde has no political affiliation. Jason has no political affiliation. No, in China, there's one party. And if you're successful at all, you are a CCP member and they keep their thumb on you. So you're right. In some circumstances, or a lot of circumstances, what was happening was that these were CCP members who wanted to hide their wealth because they didn't want the other CCP higher level officials to know how much money they had or how much money they were bringing in. So they would launder it through underground banks into Canada. Right. That's true. But in a lot of cases too, they were just moving their money over here with the full awareness of higher level CCP officials, CCP intelligence, Chinese intelligence, so on and so forth. Right.
Right.
So that was the situation. They used British Columbia as a washing machine, and it just continued on and on and on. And Christy Clark and the BC Liberals, who were in power in BC for a very long time, there's never been any real evidence presented that they were part of it, but it's hard to imagine that they weren't, considering what was happening, right? We ended up with a scenario where where Chinese money was passing through our casinos, right? And this is all so you got to remember, this is all an extension of the CCP via organized crime. Because again, they go together, right? And so like Sam Cooper recently uncovered a mortgage fraud scheme going on in Toronto. That's basically the exact same thing that happened in Vancouver, just in a different way. Because during COVID, what happened was they had to find new gimmicks and new ways to move money. And they found this through mortgage fraud schemes in Toronto. And Sam recently wrote about that. And it's like, you read it and you're like, yeah, this is exactly what happened in Vancouver, just in a different way.
And it's not like the money stopped flowing in China. It's if anything, it's more moving since COVID, because it just brought them more business, more people staying at home, consuming things, and they're the factory of the world, essentially, at this point,
right?
Which may not end up well for them, depending on how it goes. I heard they're in a financial situation with their housing bubble of their own, a really, really crazy one. But what's interesting is about this whole thing is that it's led to our governments here in British Columbia and in Canada to become more like China. I mean, you've heard about the unexplained wealth laws that they're trying to pass here in British Columbia. It's egregious. It's egregious. So they want to make it so that the police have the power to go, crack down on money laundering. They're using this excuse, of course, so they could go in and seize people's assets, because they think you might be involved in some laundering thing. And then what it is unexplained wealth. I think they've passed these laws in England where the cops come up, hey, where'd you get that? You can't say none of your business. You have to prove to them that you did it in a legal way, or they'll take it from you. And it turns like the whole, innocent till proven guilty, right on its head. And they can just come in and make accusations and then take your stuff.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, so what they're doing is they're pushing it through under cover of money laundering, and by money laundering, the images that are conjured in your mind, right? And that's the image that's going to show up in the minds of most people in BC. Oh, they're finally going after this organized crime problem. But it's these people have enough money to forge documents, right? To create businesses, on paper. That's that. So,
well, it's a way
to
forge documents. Think of it this way. So if you have one crooked cop and you have one crooked judge, and you want to make something that's ill-gotten gains legal in Canada, you get that cop to make sure that he's the one who comes and asks you to explain your wealth. And then you take it to court and you see that judge and he goes, I believe that's sufficient evidence. Here's court documents saying that it's legitimately gotten gains or gotten goods, right? And it's a further way of using the judicial system to launder things. In my opinion, in my estimate, it would have to be corruption that gets you there, but it's a method to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. And these people are already going around the system, right? Like Sam and Andy Lee too, who's done a fantastic job kind of following the paper trail. I mean, these people are next to Justin Trudeau, right? Like they're at fundraisers donating to him. You know what I mean? Like they're beyond what you and I would deal with if we got pulled over with $100,000 in our trunk, right? Like they're beyond that. Right. Like, so we can't expect laws like this to apply to them. There's no way it's going to apply to them. I mean, already with the real estate fraud even in the early 2000s, we knew that these people were buying businesses with numbered companies or homes under and registering them under numbered companies. Right. They have wound so much red tape around the Canadian federal government and the BC provincial government that you're not going to get them that way. There's no way. And so what's going to happen is it's going to apply to you, Clyde. You're going to be walking down the street with $1,000 in your pocket. You just went and, cashed in some Bitcoin or you went to the ATM and took out some cash, and they're going to say, where'd you get this money? That's how this is going to work. And that's who's going to be targeted, because the people who actually have the money are not going to have to deal with that.
Well, right? And political dissidents. We've already seen it going after truckers that went to Ottawa and refused to leave until Justin Trudeau came out to talk to them. What did they do? They froze their bank accounts. They used extrajudicial powers, suspended the rights of Canadian citizens granted to them by a flimsy document, in my perception now, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But they're willing to go after political dissidents with that rule. Why wouldn't they send the cops over and say, hey, harass them, take their stuff away?
Of course.
He take his wheels away so he can't make it to that next event, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's just another mechanism of control, right? And that's what we're looking at here. I mean, you look at the online harms bill, it's the most egregious bill I've seen in a long time, and we've had a lot of them passed in the last 4 or 5 years. And I look at it, and I was talking to JJ Carroll. He's a retired U.S. Southern border agent, former deputy agent in charge in San Diego the other day. And I was saying, like, I'm actually considering leaving Canada.
Yeah.
Because I know what's going to happen. I know if this bill passes, me, we're gone. Right. And it's not going to be a situation where Clyde gets arrested and Clyde gets put in front of a kangaroo court and they say you get 25 years, because I know that that's going to, somewhat penetrate whatever information channels that are still left over. What's going to happen is you're going to be put into the system, and they're intentionally making it so wide and so broad that it's going to get bottlenecked with cases. And so what happens is, Jason James, I get picked up and I sit in prison for 20 years just waiting for a court date. And if people don't think that can happen, just look at what happened during the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of people sat in the gulags never having actually ever been convicted of a crime. And that's what this is. That's what this is. This online harms bill gives them the precedent to come and arrest you, throw you in a box, and then say, "Yeah, we'll get you a court date, and they'll give you a lawyer, and you'll do the whole thing." But you're just going to sit there waiting forever, and your day will never come.
And on crimes that they perceive as crimes of things that you'd already done before the bill even passes, so they can go retroactive with this. No law has ever done that. Go retroactive with the punishment for people who've committed the so-called new offense prior to even having knowledge of a law that, or I mean, you don't need to have a knowledge of the law, but it wasn't a law when you broke it. That's the whole idea. It's crazy.
Well, it's retroactive because they can keep redefining what hate is. That's why hate speech is never a good idea under any circumstances, right? Under any pretext, whatever it is, right? I mean, even if you're referring to neo-Nazis, you can't refer to that as hate speech, because once you bring hate speech into the picture, it can constantly be redefined, which is what we're seeing. So tomorrow you may be fine. They may define hate speech as anti-trans speech. And you can say, well, I've never said anything bad about any trans people. I'm okay. And they're going to use that to sweep all those people up. And then they're going to redefine it. And maybe it's anti-Trudeau speech. And you're going to go, oh shit, I said a lot. And they're going to go back through your X timeline. They're going to, Clyde, in August 10th, 2020, you had this to say, right? And that's going to be a punishable offense because they've just redefined hate speech. It's codified in law, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the scary thing about this, right? The scary thing about this is that there's no way to truly define what hate is because it's an emotion. It's like happy speech. How do you define happy speech?
Yeah, that's a hard one to justify, or to put in a box. And that's the purpose of it. Like the whole idea of this is what actually terrifies me about dictatorships, about authoritarianism, is just the arbitrary nature of it. It always seems to be arbitrary in nature. It's always, emotional leaders that, people are so terrified of their whim and their vengeful nature that they just fall in line. I mean, I think of places like North Korea. I even think about how nervous people are around Putin. Think about how nervous people are around Xi, and yet people are still lashing back in China, which I think is just absolutely, anybody who lashes back in China has got balls of steel in my estimate. It's like you're doing it in a place where you don't have a right to do that, and you don't. I mean, I think we all have God-given inalienable rights, but they're not honored there at all. So people are lashing back there, like, man, you've got some cojones, and people do. But this is the thing: it's the emotional nature of it, of these dictators, and how arbitrary they are with their punishment. They'll just make up a reason, or they'll make laws that are so vague that they can just fit it. Show me the person, I'll show you the crime.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at Alexander Solzhenitsyn, right? He wrote in my opinion, at least in the top 5 greatest books ever written, the Gulag Archipelago, after he was sent to the gulags, as a result of being critical in Stalin in a letter to a friend from the front lines of the war. They actually came to the war to arrest him and then take him back to Russia and put him in the gulags, right?
That's insane. And a personal letter, not even addressed at anybody publicly. It was just to a friend.
Critical of Stalin and critical of the war, critical of what Stalin was doing in the war, not even critical of Stalin's communist policy, critical of how Stalin was managing the war. And that was it.
Yeah, and wasn't he actually like a socialist, and he supported the whole idea
in the beginning? Yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, yeah. I mean, obviously he came out not a socialist, but
it'd be hard to come out the other end,
right? But here's a critical moment in history for everybody watching and for yourself, Clyde, that you can ponder. Chairman Mao in China, right? After the Great Leap Forward, tens of millions of people die of starvation. There's a break point where members of Mao's Communist Party. So Mao was very, very good at isolating people, right?
Mhm.
And he had all the members of the top members of the Communist Party isolated. They did not see what was happening in the villages. They didn't know how many people were dying of starvation. Many of them were located in Nanking, Peking, different places. So Liu Shaoqi goes back to his home village, right? He's a top-ranking member in the CCP, sees the devastation, comes back, wrestles power from Mao, becomes the president of China. Mao's still chairman, but Liu Shaoqi at this point has more power than Mao. All they needed was like 10, 15, 20 million people to stand up and fight. That's all they needed. And it would have been over, but nobody did because they were all too afraid.
Mhm.
And so what ends up happening is Chairman Mao launches the Cultural Revolution. The Red Guard comes in, mayhem breaks out, Liu Shaoqi disappears, right? So that's the point that I'm trying to make here is that,
Well, I just want to ask you one thing.
you know,
So the Cultural Revolution, it was launched because of fears that people might unite against Mao, correct?
Yes, that's right. He used the youth, China's youth, to take back power. That was the idea with the Red Guard.
Because we're seeing a largely that happening here in the West. We have a lot of college students are getting involved in a lot of these things. BLM, now the new BLM, which is the Palestine thing, infiltrated, I think, by the same exact people. It's they're going out there and just saying the most radical things, inciting awful stuff, and looking for a reaction, get people mad at each other. I even see it, happening with this immigration crisis. Trudeau brings over a ton of immigrants. And what do people do? They get mad at the immigrants. They don't get mad at Trudeau for bringing these people over. They get mad at the people who came over here on a false promise and just want to be compensated for what they did and the time that they put into it. And people don't think of it that way. Like, if you're getting mad at them and you're hating on them, I mean, like, obviously a lot of these people do need to go home. It can't work out. You can't sustain it. But by getting mad at them, you're ignoring the guy who's like laughing behind the scenes and going, haha, see, I divided another set of group of people in Canada. And this is largely how Mao did it. He was a genius at it.
That's right. So let me pose this to you, because this is my hypothesis. I've ran it by Brett Weinstein. I've ran it by a bunch of really brilliant people, and they all think I'm onto something. So I'll share it with you, and you can tell me what you think, okay? So Chairman Mao's entire goal, he had what was called the superpower plan. And the superpower plan was to turn China into the global military power. And the way he wanted to do that was through acquiring a nuclear bomb. He thought if he had nuclear missiles, he could hold the world hostage and turn China into the world power. So the Great Leap Forward, really what it was that they exported all of their agricultural products, all of their food, in exchange for raw materials. And that's why so many people starve to death, right? There was a saying that when you go to China, what's interesting about China is that there's no leaves on the trees. And that was basically code for saying all the people are starving to death and they're eating all the leaves off the trees because that's all they have left, right? You can't eat iron.
Wow.
You can't eat steel, right? You can't eat bullets. And so
I heard it got so bad that people were trying to make broth with the feathers from pillows.
Oh yeah, no, they were making broth. They were making soups out of human corpses, right? That's where cannibalism came in, right? And it's horrifying when you read about this. It's the great tragedy of world history that people don't really know about. And I don't know why. It's been confusing me forever. And I think it's been purposely left out of our history lessons for some reason or another.
I agree with you there.
But that's that's the Great Leap Forward. They ship out all their food in exchange for raw materials. That's Mao's plan, right? So they build all the infrastructure that they need to turn China into a superpower. The second component is the Cultural Revolution, and the Cultural Revolution was a brainwash scheme, right? To turn exactly what we're seeing in the West, right? To brainwash these people through Marxist techniques, tactics, and channels, right? And that was the idea. And so here's what I think. I think that China is the real driver behind groups like the World Economic Forum, and I have a lot of evidence to support that. A good friend of mine, Brian O'Shea, he's a former U.S. military intelligence guy. He says that is it. They have their hands around the scruff of the neck of these really powerful people. But I think what Xi Jinping or whoever is behind the scenes there realized with Mao's superpower plan is that he had it backwards. What they needed to do was start with the Cultural Revolution, brainwash the public into believing that whatever was coming next was good for them, and then usher in the Great Leap Forward. And that's what we're experiencing now. What we just experienced was a Cultural Revolution. We're still at the tail end of it, and we're about to go into our great leap forward under the cover of climate change. That's what this is.
Insane. I know a lot of these people that were involved in the early formation of the World Economic Forum were heavily involved with China. They were part of actually bringing the 4 economic zones to China under, what was his name, Dao Zheng. I forget.
I can't remember, but it was
in China. But it was like Kissinger and Klaus Schwab, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, all these guys. They had what was it, the Club of Rome, and then and this is in the 70s, and they brought about this thing. And this is when I think China took a like an economic or political change. They went from wanting to be, Marxist Leninists, like that kind of society where it's this, utopian image and everybody, we all know the communism of yesteryear. But then they looked at it as, no, that doesn't work economically. Obviously, we want to keep doing the central planning thing, but we need a better economic driver. And they did this experiment with these groups, or these 4 economic zones, and it revolutionized not only China but their political system, their economic system, and they moved into more of a fascist model, like you're describing, with the stakeholder capitalism. And I think this is the work of all of these people in collaboration to test it there, see how it works, love it. Let's now make it the world thing.
Well, that's the system we're watching erected around us, right? It's the same as China's system. It's culturally Marxist at the bottom, right? So for all of us peasants, right, we get cultural Marxism, which is fantastic at creating chaos and disruption and division. It's supposed to be collectivism, right? But essentially what it does is it rips everything apart, strips God and all unifying forces out of the picture. But what it is over top is that it's fascism, right? So that's what China, that's the system China has. It's fascist at the top, Marxist culturally, right? Because fascism and communism, when they meet, right, they're the two extreme ends. So when they meet, they're mirror images of each other. Essentially, they're just very, very slight differences, right? And so they're almost impossible to pick apart. And I think that, look, I don't know if it's China. I don't know if it's somebody behind them, because you're absolutely right. With the early days of the World Economic Forum, you have Henry Kissinger, Kissinger is also the guy who bridged the relationship between Nixon and Chairman Mao, right? Henry Kissinger and the CIA, members, I can't say the CIA overall, but members of the CIA knew that China was the future, or actually, or believed that China was the future. So what we're seeing now is just kind of like the culmination of a long plan. And I say China, but you're right. I don't know if it's China necessarily, or if it's people behind them, if it's the money people. I don't know. But what I do know is that what we're seeing arrive here in Canada is the Chinese system, is the Chinese model, right? We're talking about carbon credits. We're talking about social credit systems. We have a digital ID that's being introduced in our budget. We have central bank digital currencies coming. If we want to get really conspiratorial, it really looks like our economy is being set up for collapse, right? And so you have all these things coming, and they're just extensions of the Chinese system. Now, who's behind it all, I don't know, but I think we better figure out if we're going to get out of this.
How does this help China, though, at all? Like, this is the crazy thing. I've read too much on economics to think that this would ever work legitimately. And so this is the thing, like, so, time reading articles from the Mises Institute, for example, led me to understand that, the Hitlerian economic model was that of very much a socialist model, where ultimately the state owns everything. They own the means of production.
Right.
They own you. They own the stuff. But they have it's different than communism outright, because it has a facade of self-ownership, a facade of the ability to make choices in your own endeavors. But at the end of the day, the government can just come over and say, you're no longer managing this, goodbye. Or we want you to do this way, and if you don't like it, well, goodbye. This is the way the fascist model works. And I think that the Chinese saw that and went, hey, wait, that could probably get things rolling. But here's the situation. China is largely the supplier of the world's trinkets, like doodads, trinkets for consumer economy. I think we're kind of at the end of this concept of consumer economy, because it's all on borrowed time. Everything's just on borrowed time. You're moving stuff over here. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Eventually, we're gonna get back to the time where, okay, let's get back to drinking out of glass bottles so you can reuse the stuff, or let's go back to those kind of days. And deflation is not a dirty word, man. It should never be. Things getting cheaper is a good thing. I mean, we could get into a whole conversation about that, but the idea here is that if the West fails entirely and collapses, China doesn't have a market to supply anymore. So their manufacturing goes way down unless they become the superpower that they hope they'll be. And I know this is their plan, but they're not going to be the ones consuming it, because they've built 1 billion homes and now they're tearing them all down. It's all a fake economy. It's not real. It's all based on BS, and it's these funneling schemes that are getting people rich quick at the expense of a lot of people. But you're not going to make a commanding economy by making a bunch of serfs. It's not a move. It's not a move forward.
No, and right, but that's the handicap of the isms, right? Socialism, communism, fascism, even capitalism. They're all incredibly short-sighted, right? So China's playing the long game. I mean, literally the long game. I mean, we're talking 80 years of building into this. But they don't know. I mean, it's like I always compare it to like that scene with the Joker in The Dark Knight, where he says, "I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do if I got one." Well, that's what this is. They're a dog chasing cars. But when they get that car, they don't know what they're going to do with it. Because you're right. What happens if the West collapses? First of all, if the USD collapses, that's it. It's over, period. Right? But I think what they're hoping, as stupid as it sounds for a guy who knows economics, I think what they're hoping is to collapse the USD, to collapse the CAD, to collapse the pound, and introduce a central bank digital currency, to literally hit the restart button. And I think what the point of this all is to put us in a position where we can't do anything but accept it.
No,
and I think that's where we're driving toward.
Of course,
right? Like you can't dissent, because how are you going to eat food? How are you going to, heat your home, right? Like you can't say, no, I'm not doing that. It's your only option. It's the only way out. And I believe that that's the way it'll be presented. Is that like, look, this is our only way out. And if I want to get, again, I worry that I'm going a little too off the deep end here, but part of me wonders if Bitcoin is a part of all this. If Bitcoin was decentralized currency was introduced to get people kind of in the, aware and in the mode of trading digital currencies.
Well, I'd say that the amount of pushback from the government to get in and regulate Bitcoin kind of goes against that theory. Like,
sure,
if the media are demonizing it, everybody's demonizing it. It usually makes you think, okay, maybe this is something that is decent or good, or at least worth looking into. I have a hard time with Bitcoin because it's not a tangible asset. It's not a physical thing, and I find it an interesting phenomena. Actually, I find it such a fundamentally interesting phenomena, and this is kind of like IP. Throughout all of history, all of human history, we've dealt with scarcity. This is the reality of the human existence. is everything's scarce, and human demands are infinite. If we get something, we want more. We want more of that thing, or we want more other stuff, and so we've always dealt with scarcity. It's always been a thing until things start to come in abundance. And as soon as things start to come in abundance, we look for scarcity so much that we create it ourselves. And that's what Bitcoin is. And this is what intellectual property is for the large part. Like, you're talking about things that are infinitely reproducible at zero cost. So you have to come up with arbitrary laws to make them no longer infinitely reproducible. Now, I don't know how to square my head around that, because I think intellectual property is a decent concept for protecting the rights of people who create things, that sort of thing. But then there's other bad things like patent trolls and all these bad players in intellectual property. But Bitcoin, for one, is that it's just that it's artificial scarcity, and it's created for the sole purpose of making it valuable. And I get the purpose of wanting to use it as a currency eventually, but that's an eventually thing. Until people stop speculating it up in price, and it kind of levels off and becomes a steady thing. Because for people who don't know, the things that need to be the things that become money need to have certain characteristics. They need to be one of them is it needs to be a good store of value. And that's the thing. If Bitcoin's wildly up and down, it's not a good store of value for people to use as money. It does have some of the other features, though. It's divisible infinitely. That's always been a thing, and it's readily available. If you want to get your hands on it, it's possible. You can get your hands on it. So yeah, I find Bitcoin interesting. I'm not a naysayer or a yaysayer on Bitcoin.
Yeah, me too. The thing that really kind of freaked me out is, the Trudeau Liberals, Chrystia Freeland specifically, is really pushing this concept of open banking, right? And the open banking concept is basically the same concept as blockchain, right? Full transparency. You can see all of the transactions. And that's what open banking is they're going to make it so that third party whoever's can see all of our transactions, which is obviously a gigantic infringement of our privacy, of our right to purchase anonymously. And so it's just interesting to me how they're kind of taking this idea of Bitcoin and blockchain and applying it to a new banking system that will ultimately lead to the central bank digital currency system.
Well, it's no different than early banks adopting coins and IOUs, right? At one point, banks were all private. I'm a big fan of Andrew Jackson, because he was instrumental at knocking them back, right? Keeping them back, keep those central banks out of there. And central banks are a danger. They're a serious danger. Fiat currency is a serious danger. It's robbery, is what it is. We're all being robbed on a daily basis. In fact, inflation is one of those things that's just another tax. It's just an insidious one that they don't tell you about. And they're very open about it needing to be a thing. No, we got to keep inflation at least at 2%, because if we don't, blah, 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 the economy's going to, no, deflation was a thing during the Industrial Revolution, and it was fantastic. Yeah. It was great. And it led to a lot of people wanting to build things that would last a lifetime and stuff like that. And I think it would be great if we got back to that. I wouldn't mind buying a set of wrenches that I never have to replace, stuff like that, as a mechanic. That's handy. So yeah, it's interesting. So what I see, though, is, central banking, if Bitcoin were to take hold, say Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they became viable options in the marketplace, it becomes like the new money. Just like real money. You can get robbed of it. You can lose it. All these things can happen. It's, it's the Wild West, but the liberty part of it is great. If Bitcoin were to stabilize, I would be super keen to use it as like a money, or Ethereum if it were to stabilize. that sort of thing. But I think that's what the central banks are seeing, and they're going, whoa, 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 we better catch up, because we're ruining our fiat currencies. People are catching on to that, and they're going to want an alternative. We better provide them with one that has all this control still in it.
Right. Oh yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. And you know, I'm not on either side with this, because if I found Bitcoin, I agree with you completely on the speculation aspect of it, right? Like, I even talked to my finance guy. I have a guy who handles all my investments, and he's a really open-minded, brilliant guy. And he said, like, you know, Bitcoin seems like a good idea, but it's all speculative, right? It's not tied to anything. It doesn't have real value. So if somebody says a Bitcoin is worth $5 million, and it's worth $5 million if everybody agrees, but it doesn't give it that value in the real world. And that's the problem with it, right? Is that it doesn't have real world value. It only has value if Clyde will accept, you know, $5 million worth of goods for my Bitcoin. That's the only thing that really gives it value. And at this point, there's not enough people trading Bitcoin to really give it real value. And so,
well, it's in like a diamonds in water analogy scenario, right? So the whole diamonds in water, if you're where you are right now, and somebody, you know, offered you a bunch of diamonds for your water, you take it. Absolutely, sure. Because water's, you know, it's all around you. It's abundant and easily you can get it. But if you're in the desert, you're gonna value things a lot differently, you know?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, because you're obviously a really bright guy when it comes to economics, or at least you know what you're talking about. What's your perspective on this capital gains tax with that Trudeau and the Liberals are introducing?
It's a money grab. It's a money grab because they're introducing it as this. Oh well, if it really only was what they were saying it was, like, we just need to get those, you know, those filthy rich people to pay their fair share on capital gains. They're not really making much if that were the case. So why would they be so into bringing that in if it were only going to bring in like a couple of $1 million worth of revenue in a year, as they're saying it'll do? Because there's not that many of the 0.1% out there making the capital gains in Canada. You think they're going to declare the capital gains that they made somewhere else? No. But that's not the deal. What they're trying to do is tax an intergenerational wealth transfer. And that's what they want to get their hands on. We've got boomers that are passing away and leaving their children all kinds of property. And as soon as the kids get that, they go, I can't pay the taxes on this. I'm going to sell it. Well, guess what? Now you're dinged for profits and gains on that. So not only did you get hit with, you know, you got hit with the inheritance tax, which I think is just awful. You're taxing something that's already been taxed. You're talking about people's income. They bought stuff and then they hand it down to their children, and the government's like, pay up. No, that's awful. The inheritance tax shouldn't be a thing. And all it does is it moves goods into the hands of other people, as opposed to, so say for example, you got a family that's, you know, in farming, and father hands down his farm to his son. Now the son's got a giant bill and a debt burden just for getting the property from his dad that he's worked on his entire life. Right?
That's insane.
So what if he can't afford to keep that anymore? So then what does he do? He sells off some of the assets to pay for it, downsizes the farm. Sorry, we're not going to be able to produce as much food for Canada anymore. So we're just going to be able to do this much. I've sold off some of the assets, some of the, you know, tractors, whatever, harvesters. Sell off that, and then you get dinged with a profits and gains tax.
That's so crazy. And it's all. So what do you think they're doing here? Because I've been thinking about it a lot. Are they trying to figure out a way to balance the mess that they made during COVID by just taxing everybody to death and trying to put some money back into the coffers? Is that what this is about, or is there something more to it?
Well, I mean, I'm always on the fence about this because I can't attribute people's motives. And, you know, you can we can all put our tinfoil hats on and we can say, they're going to crash the economy, and that was the plan from the beginning, and that's what they've always been trying to do. But then there are people that believe this type of economic policy. Like, just think of all the people leading up to the '08 housing crisis, and they're talking about on the news, they'd have Peter Schiff on with a bunch of other pundits, and they'd laugh at him. No, the economy's doing great. He's like, no, actually, look at the mortgage situation. Like, it's it's written on the walls right now. You can see it, and they're like, don't be such a naysayer. And then it pops, but and it's all these other people that were left, instead of being dumbfounded and go, how did we make such a mistake? They just keep going on with their dumb rhetoric. And it's crazy to think that, this could be the case, that it really is a case of the road to hell being paved with great intentions, that Trudeau actually in his head got convinced by some economists that studied Maynard Keynes, obviously, but they believe that all you got to do is stimulate the economy, inject liquidity into the economy, and then the budget will actually balance itself. Like, maybe he actually believes this stuff.
I think he does, because he doesn't know, right? Like, that's the danger in electing a dummy, right? I'm not all the way in on the Pierre Poilievre bandwagon. I think that there is a lot to be desired with that guy, but at least the benefit to him is that he understands money. And he understands the way an economy, a healthy economy, operates. See, the problem with Trudeau, and this is going back to earlier in the conversation where you're saying, we elected a guy based on his hair, and the reason we elected Trudeau was because we had it so good under Harper that we didn't know the level of damage that we could do. We didn't know how bad it could get,
and how quickly as well. It's amazing.
That's right. And honestly, the only reason I think we stayed afloat like we did for so long was because of all of the work that Harper and his cabinet put in years prior, right? I mean, we had it really good for a long time. And I think that's what it is it's just that Canadians were apathetic for the first time in my life. Look, Clyde, I've been a writer for 20 years, right? I wrote mostly about American politics because if I wrote for a publication, nobody wanted an editorial on Canadian politics. But if I did write anything, I'd have like 2 readers, right? Nobody gave a shit, right? Like, the crazy thing about me is that now, every time I write about Trudeau, I get like 3.5 million people reading what I wrote.
Absolutely.
This is the first time anybody in the world has given a shit about Canada in a political sense, right? And it's because we are the smoking crater of the Western world right now. And it's because we elected a doofus, a complete empty vessel, a marionette for globalist interests. We elected him 3 times. And we're about to elect him a 4th time if we don't get our heads out of our asses and start thinking straight, right? And that's the scary part, is that we, in a lot of ways, are responsible for destroying our own country just by being apathetic and not paying enough attention to what somebody's really about. The moment he said that he admired China's basic dictatorship should have been like, that's it, it's over.
That should have been the end of his career. My wife keeps telling me, she's like, you should put that in every one of your videos, because that's the most outrageous thing. She's from Japan, and anyone who's like sympathizes with the Chinese dictatorship is like out to lunch. So this is like, it's really crazy. And I love the fact that Canadian politics is on people's mind. And this is why I'm choosing Austin as a place to go when I move to Texas, because I want to tell this story to more people. People need to know about this, especially Americans. This is the canary in the coal mine of all time. This is really a case of, holy cow, look how bad it can get and how quickly it can get bad. And I think America is going through the same thing. They're sleepwalking their way. They sleepwalk their way into Joe Biden. They sleptwalk their way into Obama, who largely brought all this stuff. George Bush
don't
before.
Even get me started.
George Bush before. Bill Clinton before that. I mean, it's been a steady wave in one direction, and then they get this outlier Trump who's just like, nope, we're gonna start doing things differently, and get in their audacity to like punish the guy, ended up giving him a ton of popularity, and it was a fluke that he became president. It was a complete fluke.
I don't even think he wanted to be president, right? Like the thing about, so I just want to go back to Obama really quick because I don't know if I can curse. I think I've cursed a few times so far. So
yeah,
sorry,
just don't go
I'm not
crazy.
Yeah. Obama was such a fraud. He was the greatest political fraud of the last, I want to say, since Lyndon B. Johnson.
Greater than Trudeau.
Right? Oh, even greater. Oh, yes. He knew exactly what he was doing. So part of the reason why I stopped writing for a really long time was because I couldn't write about Obama, because the Democrats hoodwinked America, and especially American media, into believing that any criticism of him was racism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
None of the criticism I leveled against him was coming from a racist place. I was criticizing his policy. He manipulated not just Black America, but America in general into believing he was one of them. He never was. He was a Wall Street president. Citibank picked his administration, right? He was as Wall Street as they get. He was more Wall Street than Ronald Reagan. He was a total fraud, a complete phony. And everything that we're dealing with now in terms of cultural Marxism, specifically as it has come through the United States into Canada, is a result of him. In 2012, his rhetoric completely changed. It went from, this is what I'm going to give you. Here's all the free fun stuff I'm going to hand you. And none of that happened during his first 4 years. So what they did was they pivoted to race politics in 2012. And the cultural Marxism that has taken hold of North America, Canada, and the United States is 100% the result of the race politics that came out of his campaign for re-election in 2012.
Wow. Well, I know that the Marxists in academia, they've been wanting to do the racial thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I know, what was it, back in I think it was the 70s, they realized, and it's like, this is documented. This isn't like conspiracy theory zone. This is like them talking about this openly, saying, you know, in North America, people don't buy this like class culture, class thing, class war thing. Like, it worked in England to some degree. It worked in Germany. It worked in, you know, in the Bolshevik Revolution, all this stuff. Because throughout Europe, there were classes. There were serfs, there were lords, there were all this stuff. But in North America, there's never that. Everybody's who's poor is an incidentally, temporarily embarrassed millionaire. You know what I mean? Like, you have the potential of being whatever it is that you want to be, and there's an attitude of that, or at least there has been for a very long time. And so the Marxists realized this, and they couldn't pit people against each other in that aspect, because that's all that is. It's pitting people against each other. It's division and conquer. And so then they figured it out. They go, wow, the melting pot. Why don't we dig into that? Instead of this, you know, people uniting under one thing, the flag, you know, why don't we pit them against each other and manipulate them that way? And they did that. They did that on cultural and racial lines.
Yeah, well, I lived in Los Angeles during the Obama years. I watched it change. And I wrote a lot about it. Couldn't get any of it published for the life of me, right? But I watched it change. I watched Black Americans slowly get duped back into believing that they are hated and despised by everybody else. I watched Latino Americans slowly get duped into believing that white people want to deport them all back to Mexico and South America. I watched white people get duped into believing that they actually believed all this.
Yeah.
I watched it happen, and I was sitting there like, what is going on? I watched it change, and I was just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I knew Obama was a fraud from the economic collapse and the bank bailouts, because there were a million different ways to fix that. And he fixed it in the most Wall Street friendly way possible. That's when I started looking into him, at who was actually behind him, who actually was backing his campaign in 2008. And it wasn't grassroots like he tried to make people believe. He was backed by Wall Street and big tech. right? And so the point is that yeah, all of this, what we're watching now, is a long game, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but I'll tell you, if you take a close look at China, really, a lot of what's happening here really resembles what's happened there in the past, and where they are now is where we're going. That's at least the way I see it.
Well, at least that's what they're trying to do. Like, this is what people are trying to do. But then you get groundswell pushback and stuff like this. Like, it was incidental that Donald Trump got elected. Like, that was a fluke. It was a mistake.
Oh yeah, sorry, I wanted to comment on that. I actually watched him try to sink his campaign. Like, if you watch, like, in 2016, like the last 4 weeks, just go back and watch video from those last 4 weeks. Like, he's desperately trying to lose. He's like saying like wild stuff, like like I hate lesbians and things like that. Like, he's saying everything that he can, because what I believe it was that it was a giant promotional thing that he was doing by running for president, because he had ran for president before. People didn't know that. It was always just self-promotion, right? Because Trump running for president is a great way to promote the Trump brand. But this time it kind of got out of hand, right? And he found himself in a position where I don't think he realized how hated and how despised Hillary really was. Like, I've written about this previously, but people didn't vote for Donald Trump because he was Donald Trump. They voted for Donald Trump because he wasn't Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
He wasn't part of the elite class. Yes, he was a billionaire, but he's a cheeseburger billionaire. He's not hanging out with Hillary in the Hamptons, having, people murdered for, knowing secrets they're not supposed to know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I like that. And cheeseburger billionaire.
Yeah, I made that up. I'm
really
kind
funny.
of cherry picking from an essay that I wrote. Yeah, I wrote that's something that I wrote.
Oh, it makes
before,
a lot
but
of sense though. Like, a lot of like fast food, entrepreneurs that make it really big, they still a lot of times maintain that same sort of like persona. The air of being a fast food guy. They're a restaurateur. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Look, Trump he's a 1980s real estate hustler.
Yeah.
Right. He can sit in a room with the mob and not break a sweat. That's the guy he is. Right. Is that the guy who's the right guy to be president of the United States? I don't know. I personally think Robert F. Kennedy is a better choice for the job. But what people wanted was not Hillary Clinton, because they knew that she's a deceptive. They knew that she's a liar. Anybody who knew anything about politics understood what Bill Clinton did during his time. And that's what they didn't want. They didn't want any more of that. And so they voted for Donald Trump. And to be honest, it could have been Jason James. It could have been Clyde. It could have been anybody. If you had to put them in there against Hillary Clinton, as long as you didn't say anything too over the top, you would have got elected. But if you just watch the last 4 weeks of his campaign. If you ever have time, just watch it, because he's just saying the craziest stuff and people are cheering, and you can see in his eyes, he's like, they're still believing this. Like, they're still on board. I can't believe it. Like, he's trying to sink his campaign in the most, in the least damaging way possible.
Well, I think what he was doing is he was tapping into the things that people actually care about. Like, massive immigration is a really bad idea. It's a really bad idea. And like, they're doing the same thing in Canada. So, if there was a politician running for the Conservatives, for example, that came out and said, yeah, I'm going to close the border, and we're only going to bring in people that, work on a merit system. I think Pierre Poilievre has kind of alluded towards that, but not really gone full tilt on that one. And I don't know if that's because he doesn't, they're trying to tie him together with Trump. And I think he's trying to politically like distance himself from any sort of like Trumpisms or anything like that. So if he's like, shut the border, I think that'd be fuel for the liberals so bad. Right. But it's true. Right. So Trump, even at the time of Trump, nobody in the Republicans was willing to say that stuff. But it's what people are thinking. It's what people around at their kitchen or dining room table are talking about. And here's this guy. He's coming out and he's saying it. He's just come out and said it. He said they're not giving us their best. What? Like, that's it.
Yeah. Well, no, but that's why Trump was such a fantastic populist, because it's for exactly what you just outlined. He is one of us. He's a billionaire. He's not hanging out with us. We're not going to go see him at Denny's, but he thinks like us. And that's why when he would say stuff, he was saying the things that we say in private conversation, right? and he was just saying them out loud, and that's what endeared him to people. And that's why I think Polyev is receiving support, but reluctant support, because he's not taking that step.
Yeah,
I think
he's
Polyev needs to be
reluctant.
more of a he needs to be more of a populist and less of a sloganeering politician. I don't want to hear axe the tax or break the cake or, build the stills or whatever new rhyme he comes up with. There's there's that set of videos where Pierre Polyev went and visited that protest a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it went viral, right? You know why it went viral? Because he's just being himself, right? And, there's a clip where he says, everything that guy says is bullshit, in reference to Justin Trudeau, right? And that's the Pierre Polyev we need.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy we want to hear from. I want to hear from Pierre Polyev, the man, not the politician, not axe the tax and all the other slogans. I want to hear him from his heart. Tell us what's up, man. And I guarantee you, if he did that, Trudeau would have to get on a plane and go somewhere else, because we wouldn't even need an election, right? The thing that keeps people, I think, distant or makes people keep Polyev at arm's reach is the fact that he's still a politician and he feels like a politician. There's part of him that feels inauthentic and disingenuous, right? And so if he just dropped the shtick, right? Like Andrew Scheer, same deal. If he had have just dropped the shtick, he would have done way better. And with Polyev, if he just drops it and if he's just himself, he could campaign in a t-shirt for the next year. Doesn't matter, because as long as he's himself, I think that's what will endear him to people and what will make people gravitate toward him.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I've said this before that, Pierre's a politician, and he goes with the popular groundswell that's coming in. I'm not talking just poll numbers, this kind of thing, because this is how Ottawa works. They look at the polls and they go, which way do I vote? I disagree with that way of doing things. But as representatives, I think it's their duty to listen to what the populists are saying, the people around the country. And if there's a groundswell, because there is a groundswell in Canada, there's a populist movement of people saying, no, we want liberty. We're done with this.
Yeah.
And I think that Pierre is following that group, but he's trying to keep them at a distance because, there's certain characters in there he doesn't want to get associated with, or all of this stuff that you have to dodge around because it's just not going to be good for the campaign or whatever. And so there he is. He's sitting on this fence between, liberals that he's trying to bring over, and liberal voters that he's trying to bring over, and the groundswell of this populist movement that's just looking for a guy to elect, that he's even starting to lose a little bit of support in that camp, because they're going exactly like you're saying. When are we going to see the real guy?
Yeah, well, that's it. And so I got to wrap this up here in 5 minutes, but okay. I have a lot of American friends from all my years living in the United States, as I'm sure you do. Most of my American friends I can't say most. They're a mixed bag of people. Some are black, some are gay, some are white, some are Latino, right? Do you know how which ones of them voted for Trump? All of them.
All of them, yeah.
Right? My gay friends voted for Trump. My black friends voted for Trump. My white friends voted for Trump. All of them voted for Trump. You know why? Their answer was all the same. Because he speaks to me. Because he's talking to me. Right? Mm-hmm. The big lie that, Trump's a racist. He's a homophobe. He hates everybody. He's a white supremacist Nazi. Everybody saw through that. Everybody saw through it from day one. Right? Mm-hmm. And so Polyev, I know that he's worried about being associated with certain characters. We hear that Justin Trudeau, trying to get him to disavow people in the media. And the reason Trudeau is doing that is because that word that he's using is code for blue collar white men. That's blue collar men in period.
Yeah.
Period. But he's using it as code for a group, for a type of people. And Pierre Polyev won't do it. But what I wish Pierre Polyev would do is just talk to everybody in the room and just say, look, we're all Canadians. We're all the same here. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter whether Trudeau calls you a far-right extremist or you're a good liberal, whatever. We're all Canadians, and we're all trying to get toward the same goal. And what Pierre Poilievre, he could be that unifying force, but the only thing that he needs to do is drop the slogans and be a person.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think he would get a lot more support. I think on both sides. I think a lot more even liberals would see him as like, oh, okay, this guy's got some conviction, you know?
Yeah. Well, he also has the background, right? He has the resume. That's already there, right? He could say, look, I know economics. I know how our economy is supposed to operate. I know how to do this. But look, I'm not going to be the politician. I'm not going to be the Aaron O'Toole, the stiff, right? I'm coming to talk to you because we're all in a lot of trouble. And I'm not going to candy coat this for you. If we don't fix it now, it's going to get way worse in the future. So that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to fix this country. That's what I'm trying to do. And if he came with that message, I guarantee you he would ignite the same spirit that ignited during the Freedom Convoy.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're right on that. Now, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'd love to have you again.
Thanks for having me, man.
What a treat, man. I really love your insight.
And dude, likewise, man. I love watching your show. Like I'm a newbie in this space, right? So I'm kind of like, see what Clyde's doing, see what Trish is up to, see what all these different people are doing. And I think it's really cool that there's this community of us that's kind of sprouting up, right? And yeah, man, I love your work. I love everything you do. I think you're a really insightful guy, and I'm just happy to be here, man. I appreciate the invite.
Wow, that's a really nice thing to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm gonna get to a couple of super chats, and then we'll end the stream here.
Cool.
We've got I just gotta make sure I'm not covering some of the ones that I already talked about. We've got here, sorry, Chris B with a 279 super chat. Trudy Singh and Carney are WEF elitists. Yeah, that's we know that. Chris for $10 says, I wouldn't panic about Carney. He will be the next John Turner, Kim Campbell. The Libs will not win for a while. Look at Ontario. The Libs' reputation is shot there for long term. Ford will win a third term. Ford's really shit the bed, for lack of a better term.
Oh my God.
Holy cow. Yeah, he's awful.
He's at this point where every time you see him, he just looks really uncomfortable because he knows he's like fucked it all up. You know, like he's like a guy who's just like, he like drove through the side of a store, you know, like through a storefront window, and he like just got out of the car and he stood there like this. And that's what he looks like to me all the time. Like he just knows that he's wrecked everything.
I would have preferred his brother. For sure.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Solar for $5 says, do you think we should wait to see what happens with PP before fleeing Canada? No. I mean, I'm already leaving. I'm set to leave. So that's gonna be a thing.
Yeah. So for people who are listening, Pierre Poilievre was on a board of a commission to investigate central bank digital currencies. So when he talks about, like, you know, saying no to CBDCs and all that, I don't know what he's saying. I mean, maybe he's had a change of heart, but he has already been part of parliamentary moves toward a central bank digital currency. So
it's like the things, all these things are already in motion, unless you got like a have your melee. Then it's a lot of this is going to move forward. Diane Sylvain with $50 says, hi Clyde and Jason, I love you both. My friend, third generation Texan, says avoid Austin as it's totally like California woke. He recommends Houston, more jobs, better rent, safer and sane people. I can email you more about which parts of Houston. Well, we like Austin for a lot of different reasons. This is going to be a great opportunity to bring the podcast and the story of Canada to where all the premier podcasts are. So I want to tell this story to whoever is happy to have me. And if I'm in the neighborhood, then I don't care if they call me 20 minutes. I'm in the car. I'm coming. You know, that's the plan.
Yeah.
And I want to spread this message. But then also, I live in British Columbia, right? I love being around nature, and Austin is like right on the foothills of national parks that are very beautiful, waterways that come through. Like it's like the place to be if you're into like going to hang out at the lake and doing that kind of thing. Very like Canadian minus winters. So like that's the other reason for Austin. And I'm not gonna live in the city. I'm gonna live in the burbs, like the outskirts, where it's not gonna be so much like woke or whatever. Have you there.
Well, I've been to Texas many times, and I'll say retire in Dallas, party in Houston, live in Austin.
Well, there you
That's
go.
the way to do it.
There you go. And I'm not opposed to living near people who differ from my thoughts. You know what I mean? I like having discussions with people I disagree with. Just not enough of them come on my show.
I have the same problem too. I've reached out to so many people that I guess you would define as being radically left, and none of them will do it. And I'm not a guy who's like looking to slam dunk on people or destroy people.
No, I'm not.
I'm actually I know I don't look like a guy like maybe, but I'm all about love. I try to spread as much love as possible and kindness. And so I invite people on my show just because I want to talk to them. And maybe we might have what I'm really trying to do is find the places where we overlap and where we agree. Right. And of course, everybody I've reached out to on the radical left are like, no. And of course, all the people on the right are like, hell yeah, I'll challenge you any day. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do there either. So it's,
yeah, well, it is what it is. But hopefully we can both encourage some people to come over and talk. Even if I disagree with somebody completely, it would just be interesting to have the conversation. And I'm not about internet blood sports or like gotcha moments or any of that stuff. So that's the plan. Anyway, for everybody to find you on the internet, let's get your stuff up here again. Jason James on Twitter. It's just Jason James BNN, and then go check out the Brave New Normal Substack. I'll make sure that's up. And then you have a YouTube channel where you've got a tremendous podcast. You've been interviewing all kinds of amazing people, really awesome conversations going on there. So all the links, as always, will be in the description. We'll be posting this on Monday morning for people to watch this again. So all the links will be in the description down below. Jason James, thanks for joining me. Stay on the line, but we're going to say goodbye to the live stream.
Cool. Clyde, thank you so much, everybody listening. Much love to you all. And Clyde, you might see me in Austin soon. So
we might be neighbors.
Might be a two-man party.
I won't object. All right. Good night, everybody. Keep on